to that question. And certainly, I would look at about 40,000 Northerners who fit in this category, I would say. Thank you.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. Honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Honoré Mercier. Mr. Speaker, it is with pride and emotion that I rise today in this chamber, and my first words are that I want to thank the people of Honoré Mercier for their trust and their support, and I want to tell them that I will do everything in my power to earn that trust. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Mr. Speaker, on being elected Speaker of the House. The last election campaign was the longest in modern history, and the Liberals won a strong victory and have a clear mandate to do things differently, to build a new relationship with Canadians, which is based on dialogue, openness, and respect. We have a mandate to make the middle class more prosperous and make our society more fair, and to have a greener, more open Canada. And I hope we can all achieve this together.
Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today for the first time in Canada's 42nd Parliament, having been re-elected for my fourth term to serve the best riding in Canada. I first want to humbly say thank you to the people of Kitchener, Wellesley, Woolwich and Wilmot for trusting me to represent you once again in this House. I look forward to meeting you in Kitchener, New Hamburg, St. Clement, St. Jacobs, Elmira, and many more of the great communities of Kitchener-Conestoga. I want to assure you that I will be working hard for you every day, and for the next 4 years I look forward to serving you in every way that I can. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I would not be here today without the support and prayers of a huge team. Thank you to Rob, Linda, Stephanie, Mark, Daryl, Michael, and dozens of other volunteers who work long hours day after day for weeks to ensure my election victory. Special thanks to my wife Darlene for her constant love, support, and encouragement, and to our 3 children, Gavin, Benj, and Arya, and their spouses, and our 9 grandchildren, who make what I do here in this House all so very worthwhile. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, I first want to thank the voters of Châteauguay-Lacolle for the honor they have given me, and I commit to this House that I will work tirelessly to keep their trust. Mr. Speaker, my riding is located between the St. Lawrence River and the American border. It is semi-rural, semi-urban, and it has great agricultural wealth in Jardin de Napierville. The people are creative, the history fascinating, and the economy growing. My riding is well known as being the largest vegetable growing region in Quebec and an model for environmental protection through the wildlife zone it has.
The name, Châteauguay-Lacolle. Lacolle is actually in the neighboring riding. Rest assured that I am consulting my fellow citizens as to a name that better represents our community, and I will be proposing a new name in due course to this House. Thank you.
Member for Courtenay, Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, as this is my first opportunity to rise in this House, I want to thank the people of Courtenay, Alberni for putting their faith and trust in me by electing me as their Member of Parliament. I would also like to congratulate you on your election as Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on October 25th, the Leviathan II sank off my home community of Tofino and 6 lives were lost. Fishermen from the Ahousaht First Nation were the first to arrive on the scene and began pulling survivors from frigid waters. They were joined by marine tour operators, first responders, members of Tloquid First Nation, and local Tofino residents. People's homes were open to strangers, temporary beds were set up for the injured, and in the village of Ahousaht, a community where unemployment is as high as 70%, people pulled out $5 and $10 bills to buy gas for boats so the search for survivors could continue. Today, I ask all members in this House to join me in paying tribute and respect to the families of those lost at sea, the survivors, the rescuers, and all of those whose courage and compassion embodies the very best of Vancouver Island. And in the Nuu-chah-nulth language, I want to say kleko, kleko. Thank you to our local heroes.
Honourable Member for Nepean. Député de Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank over 34,000 citizen Nepean for electing me to represent them in this august House. I pledge to work hard for the benefit of people with all backgrounds and all viewpoints, for the economic development of Nepean and Ottawa, and to create quality jobs. There's a need to work in collaboration with all three levels of the government. I had several formal and informal talks with Mayor Jim Watson and 5 City of Ottawa councillors, Jan Harder, Michael Kakish, Keith Eglai, Scott Moffat, and Rick Shirley. I also had several meetings with the Member of Provincial Parliament, Lisa McLeod. In my drive to bring respect back to public service and to understand how best we can work together, I had meetings with Debbie Davu, the President of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, and Larry Rosso, the Regional Executive Vice President of the National Capital Region for the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, our Alberta Conservative family has lost a giant. Manmeet Singh Buller was a big man with a big heart. In what turned out to be one of the last causes he took on, Manmeet championed the cause of Afghanistan's increasingly desperate religious minorities. At one time, Afghanistan had around 200,000 Sikhs and Hindus. Today, they number less than 10,000. Security concerns have even prevented some Sikh children from attending school. The Canadian government can help Afghanistan's religious minorities by creating a special program under Section 25 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. This has been done in the past, and communities in Canada are ready to step up if the government takes the necessary steps. To honour Manmeet, but also because it is the right thing to do, I call on this government to take the necessary steps to help persecuted religious minorities living in Afghanistan.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, the previous Conservative government shut down the Kitsilano Coast Guard base, despite pleas from MPs, the City of Vancouver, the Province of British Columbia, and Vancouver Police and Fire Departments. Conservatives were warned that lives and the environment would be put at risk. So there was no surprise at the huge delay in identifying and cleaning up the 2014 bunker fuel spill and the expanded time for rescue craft to arrive from Sea Island. Our Liberal government made a commitment during the election to reopen Kitsilano Coast Guard Base and the marine communications on BC coast. I was pleased to see that commitment in the Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and Coast Guard's mandate letter from the PM. The voices of the people of Vancouver were heard. I had presented thousands of petitions in this House and held rallies to get the previous government to reverse its decision, to no avail. I look forward to being there when our new Liberal government reopens the Kitsilano Coast Guard base in the near future.
For Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, this is the first time on my feet in this chamber in this session. Allow me to express my appreciation to the good people of Charlottetown and the birthplace of Confederation in Canada's smallest and nicest province for having re-elected me to represent them in Parliament. I'm profoundly honoured to have re-earned their support. Today I rise to recognize one such constituent, Kathy Hambley, the Executive Director of the Greater Charlottetown Area Chamber of Commerce. Kathy joined the Chamber as a member in 1978, went on the board, served as their president in 2002. She began her career as Executive Director in 2005. In that role, she has transformed the organization, introducing initiatives such as Island Advance, PEI Connectors, Biz-to-Biz Expo, and the annual Excellence Awards. As a crowning achievement to her legacy of excellence, she was honoured by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce Executives of Canada as their Executive Director of the Year.
Member for Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the constituents of Foothills for re-electing me once again to be their representative in the House of Commons. It is an honour to have earned their confidence, and I will work my utmost each and every day to maintain that trust. The people of Southern Alberta are committed to our families, our communities, and we have a profound love of the land. And we have an inspiring work ethic. But, Mr. Speaker, the families and small businesses and communities in my riding depend on the resource sector, oil and gas, mining, forestry, agriculture, which is one of the reasons I was extremely disappointed to see that these industries were absolutely absent from the speech from the throne. The oil and gas sector has been Canada's economic engine for decades. Agriculture has been part of our heritage for generations. These industries create jobs and prosperity in rural communities throughout Foothills, Alberta, and Canada. I want this to be crystal clear. Unlike our new government, I know my colleagues and I in the opposition, we will stand up for the resource industry, we will stand up for rural Canadians, and we will stand up for Canada's economy.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, 100 years ago today, Punch magazine ran what is now the most recognized war poem in history. In Flanders Fields was inspired when a young Canadian artillery officer was killed by an exploding artillery shell. That officer served alongside a Canadian doctor named John McCrae. As the Brigadier Doctor, John McCrae was asked to conduct the burial service, and so following that service, McCrae began drafting his now famous poem. Well, 100 years has passed, and while much has been done to commemorate those lost to war, those who have returned from battle also need our help. From PTSD to resettlement issues to physical injuries and skills development, it is time to honor the dead by truly caring for those living. Let us never forget to stand with those who stood with us today and every day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for
L'honorable député de
honourable member for Saint-Boniface, Saint-Ouen.
Site in the St. Boniface Cathedral, the Manitoba Métis Federation, L'Union Nationale Métis, and I paid our respects on the 130th anniversary of the execution of the father of Manitoba and leader of the Métis Nation, Louis Riel. Père du Manitoba Riel.
Father of Manitoba, Mr. Riel, understood the need for social justice. He was tireless in working on behalf of Francophones.
Parties, Métis and non-Métis, when negotiating Manitoba's entry into Confederation. It was his ability to build consensus that resonates with us still today. En tant que fier Métis,
as a proud Métis, I am inspired by this great Canadian hero, and today we feel that pride still in Manitoba and across the country. The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this first speaking opportunity to congratulate all of my colleagues on their election, and especially I want to sincerely thank those who voted for me in Mégantic-l'Érable. They are concerned, though. They're concerned that this government is incapable of explaining how and by whom all these expenditures that were announced in the campaign, the throne speech, and yesterday again by the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister will actually be paid for. The tax cut will cost $1.2 billion. Families know that they will have less savings room in the TFSA. And I think that the government is biting off more than it can chew. I hope that they're going to get out their calculator and find their way back to a balanced budget soon.
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Citizens of Vancouver Quadra for re-electing me as their Member of Parliament.
Hear, hear.
On September 30th, 100 years ago, the University of British Columbia opened its doors and welcomed its very first class of 379 students. From that rather modest beginning, UBC has grown to host 60,000 students on 2 campuses, with alumni living in more than 120 countries. A global center for research and teaching, UBC consistently ranks among the 40 best universities in the world, driving positive change throughout Canada and worldwide. British Columbians are rightly proud of UBC's deep commitment to sustainability. In fact, its strategic plan commits all aspects of the university to be a living laboratory exploring and exemplifying social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Please join me in congratulating UBC for a century of learning, research, and community engagement excellence.
Honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, as this is the first time that I rise in this House, I would like to thank the people of North Island Powell River for sending me. It is a great honour. 24th, one of our communities lost an elder. Jimmy Allen Chikite, fondly known as Oli, was a man of the ocean, and from 1972 to 1986, a photo of his seiner with him on it was on the back of the Canadian $5 bill. When I last spoke with Oli, he shared with me his concern about the potential closure of the Comox Coast Guard. With his years on the water, he knew how important the Coast Guard is for the safety of people, the environment, and the many isolated communities in my riding. He asked me to remind the government that BC needs the Coast Guard to be healthy and strong. So in remembrance of a great man, I am proud to be the voice of my riding and for Oli. My thoughts are with his family and community during these hard days.
Honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, there is not one member in this House who is not horrified by the national tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. As a British Columbian, the stories of C.J. Fowler, the Highway of Tears, and the horrors of the Picton Farm have struck close to home. In the past, we thought it was important to allocate resources and move forward with action on services and programs that have proven to be effective. The current government's pledge to have a national inquiry to hear directly from the families affected and their ongoing search for answers reflects the call from many across the country. We offer our support to this initiative and for the government to fulfill its promise to these families. My sincere hope is that the national inquiry will bring the answers, closure, and peace that these families so desperately need.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 82nd anniversary of the Holodomor, the famine genocide of 1932-33, when Stalin put in place an evil master plan for Ukrainians. Behind barbed wire, Ukraine became a hell on earth, her lush countryside denuded of leaves and grasses as people ate anything that grew. It became a land where no fields rustled, no birds sang, where the deathly silence in villages was only broken by the sounds of wagons picking up the dead. One by one, thousand after thousand, million after million laid their skin and bone bodies down onto Ukraine's fertile black soil and became one with their land. Today, hybrid military invasions and annexation has been visited upon these same lands. Thousands have died standing against this new Kremlin evil. To them we say Slava Ukraini, and to the millions of victims of the Holodomor, let us make a pledge of two simple words: Bish Nikoli, never again.
My dear colleagues, before we begin question period, I want to thank members for their good conduct yesterday. I know we all want to show respect for one another and listen when someone else is speaking, as we would in a meeting with our constituents, for example. And I know that our constituents will appreciate the good behavior on display. Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal Party put tax-free savings accounts on the chopping block. Over 11 million Canadians have invested their savings in this excellent program, and 80% of them are low and middle-income Canadians, including seniors. Now, we know that the Prime Minister is in a mad scramble for cash, but why did he decide to take such a huge bite out of the savings of seniors?
Right Honourable the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party made campaign commitments to help seniors, particularly our vulnerable seniors, which is why we've committed to increasing the GIS for low-income single seniors to help them with almost $1,000 more a year. We've also recognized that time and time again the previous government took on initiatives that helped the wealthiest and not those who needed the help, and we've committed to turning that around and giving the people who need the help instead of helping the people who have $10,000 to set aside at the end of every year.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals think only the rich use TFSAs, and they need that money to fund their massive spending. What are they going to do next, Mr. Speaker? Are they going to eliminate TFSAs altogether? Once again, the Conservatives are trying to scare seniors. We saw with Hazel McCallum that doesn't work. The Liberal Party has committed to protecting TFSAs at $5,000 and then to make sure that assistance is provided to the most vulnerable seniors, those most in need, and we're going to increase the GIS for them.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it took barely a month for the Liberals to take an axe to the limits for tax-free savings accounts. But let's hear from an important voice when those limits were increased, and I quote, "I think it's really quite a positive move for retirement security in general." And who said that, Mr. Speaker? Morneau Chappelle, the finance minister's own company. So on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we couldn't agree with him more. Why doesn't the Prime Minister agree with this?
Right Honourable the Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party demonstrates that it hasn't been listening to ordinary Canadians, that it is out of touch with the real concerns, because if they think that average Canadians have $10,000 to set aside at the end of every year, they are sorely mistaken about the impact of 10 years of your government.
I remind the Right Honourable Prime Minister that it wasn't my government. Honourable député de la Lac-Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, of course, the Conservative government was proud to implement TFSAs to help people save for the future. And why do we talk about, is this new government amputating, lowering the maximum, the ceiling for TFSAs? This 60% of people who were contributing were earning 65 grand or less. Why are they attacking that portion of the population? The Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that it's not average Canadians or vulnerable Canadians who have $10,000 to set aside at the end of the year. Only the rich can do that. And the fact is that this government is continually seeking to help the less fortunate and not those who don't need help. That's why we were elected, to help those who really need help. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, at a time when government operations were in surplus during the last election campaign, this Prime Minister mentioned a tiny deficit of $10 billion. The Finance Minister has since said it'll be over $10 billion. They talk about transparency a lot. Can the Prime Minister specify the exact amount of the looming deficit, which will be much more than $10 billion, apparently? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the fact is, we've always been open and transparent, and we will continue to do so. In the economic update a few weeks ago, we spelled out the numbers on real growth, and we will continue to update the numbers because since the last budget from the Conservatives, the situation has worsened considerably. The honourable member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, the NDP welcomes the establishment of a process to delve into the serious problem of missing and murdered Indigenous women, which was neglected far too long by the Conservatives.
Of Indigenous women and girls murdered and missing. But the question is, given the urgency of this national crisis, can the Prime Minister provide Canadians with a timeline for real action? Can we expect a report by the end of 2016?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The ongoing tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women has continued for decades now in this country, and it is time, absolutely, that we engage in a national public inquiry that is properly informed and in collaboration with experts, groups, and Indigenous communities themselves. And I know in order to get healing for the victims, in order to get healing for the families, justice for the victims, and to put an end to this tragedy, it needs to be done right, and that is exactly what we're committed to doing.
I have a member for Outremont.
In a previous response, the Prime Minister just said that the former government had a tendency to, quote, help the wealthiest. The Prime Minister now claims that he's helping the middle class, but perhaps he can help us with his definition. Here we go. A family with 2 children earning $45,000 a year receives precisely nothing from the middle class tax cut. One of his 35 parliamentary secretaries earning $184,000 gets the full benefit. How does he define middle class?
Right Honourable the Prime Minister.
I find it curious that the honourable member would talk about families with 2 children, because they absolutely benefit from our new Canada Child Benefit, which is going to be more generous. And both the Conservatives and the NDP defended the idea that the wealthiest families should be receiving thousands of dollars in child benefit checks, when indeed what we are doing is making sure that the people who need it will receive it. And that's what the Canada Child Benefit will do when we present our next budget.
The honourable member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about what Parliament is doing this week. The Prime Minister talks about tax cuts for the middle class, but how does he explain that a family with 2 kids earning $45,000 a year will get zip in terms of tax cuts, but one of his 35 parliamentary secretaries earning $184,000 gets the full benefit? Where's the justice for the middle class? The rich get the full amount, and the rest is just empty promises about something that may come along in the spring. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're in a situation where the Conservative Party criticizes us for raising taxes on the wealthiest, and the NDP criticizes us for not lowering taxes enough for the middle class. The Liberal Party was elected with a balanced approach. We recognize that we need to help people in need, and we can ask a bit more from people who have been successful, and we can restore growth, which will benefit all income levels. Thank you very much.
For Durham.
When the Prime Minister promised to restore home mail delivery during the election campaign, there were no ifs, ands, or buts. I'd like to give the Prime Minister another chance, because yesterday we couldn't get a straight answer. The Prime Minister has made a solemn promise to Canadians to restore home mail delivery. Will the Liberal government be restoring home mail delivery, yes or no?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd actually, I actually would suggest that the honourable members opposite consult the Liberal electoral platform, which is still online, which clearly states that we will ensure a moratorium on the installation of mailboxes, community mailboxes, and work with Canada Post and with citizens and with groups to ensure that we're giving the kind of service that Canadians need. That is the commitment we made in the election, and that is a commitment we are keeping.
The honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, it's hard to believe that the only meaningful security screening for the 25,000 Syrian refugees is a 45-minute interview conducted by an immigration official through a translator, Mr. Speaker. The government is treating this as business as usual, despite the fact that this is a massive influx of people from a region ravaged by terrorism and strife. Why is this government cutting corners on security just to keep their arbitrary timelines?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The short answer is we are not doing that. We have a system in place that provides for robust layers of security screening that will all be done overseas before the refugees board their planes. When they board their planes, they will have that complete security screening done up to the standards that we would expect in Canada in the normal course.
Honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister just said the process would be robust, but a few weeks ago he said that the screening process will not be 100% foolproof. Mr. Speaker, can this minister inform the House as to the percentage he thinks is acceptable?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is the standards that are being applied with respect to the refugees are the same high standards that Canada always applies. We have made sure in the system we have put in place that there is no compromise. There is no compromise on safety and security. That is important to ensure this process can be successful, and Canadians at the end of the day can be very proud of what we have accomplished together.
The honourable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give the minister a second chance by asking the question again. Canadians were concerned to hear the Minister of Public Safety say that the process would not be 100% reliable. Can the minister explain to us clearly in the House what percentage is acceptable? A percentage, please, a number. The Minister of Public Safety.
Well, clearly the Conservative campaign strategy was not 100% foolproof. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is Canadians expect a strong system. They expect security to be applied in the way that is always done with Canadian refugees. That's why we have robust layers of security in place, interviews, biometrics, checks against computer systems, repeated examinations of identification to make sure this process works.
I remind colleagues that we each get our turn, and let's listen when the other member is speaking.
The honourable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, officials from a number of departments are in Lebanon, Turkey, and Jordan, and they're selecting refugees. It was reported that the government used private security firms to provide security for those officials. How can the government guarantee that those officials are actually in security? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the process that we have put in place in this very difficult part of the world is a process that's been designed by the Immigration and Refugee Department, by the Canada Border Services Agency, by the RCMP, and by CSIS. The strongest, best Canadian officials have put this plan in place, and they are determined to keep our officials on the ground doing the work safe, and they are absolutely determined to make sure that every proper screening and security measure is adequately followed.
The honourable member for Simcoe Grey.
Speaker, can the minister please tell us here about the immunization records of Syrian children that are about to enter school in Canada? It's important that we don't put these Syrian children at risk. It's also important that we don't put Canadian kids at risk. Moms and dads are telling me that they're concerned about an outbreak, potentially of measles or mumps or another infectious disease. Where are the records? What medical screening is being done? And can the parents in my riding be reassured that their children are going to be safe, as well as Syrian children being safe?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to say that a thorough health examination is taking place for all of the Syrian families who are being considered for entry into Canada. That includes an international immigration exam, and that includes asking, of course, about the immunization records. Like the honourable member opposite, I am concerned with making sure that we keep Canadians safe, and all necessary measures will be undertaken to make sure that vaccination schedules are up to date.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, genocide is an intent to destroy, whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. In the Iraqi-Syrian region, the entire Yazidi villages have been emptied. They've been enslaved. Mass graves have been filled with their people, and their girls, as young as 6, have been raped, all at the hands of the so-called Islamic State. Will the Minister of Immigration name this genocide for what it is and tell us how many of the 1385 permanent resident visas granted to refugees since November the 4th have been issued to Yazidis?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, of course, I deplore and denounce the tragic attacks on Yazidis, as I do the tragic attacks by ISIS on all manner of people. So first and foremost in our choice of refugees is that we take the names given by the United Nations and we choose the most vulnerable, irrespective of religion, and it is among the most vulnerable that we bring to this country and welcome them as permanent residents and soon-to-be new Canadians.
The honourable member for Desnethe, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Speaker, 36 years ago, my friend Myrna disappeared from my home community of Lalache. Her sister Dora Laprise has been one of the many voices calling for an inquiry into our murdered and missing Indigenous sisters. Like Dora, there are hundreds of families who are looking for answers. The voices of these families need to be heard. Can the minister assure the House that these families will receive the support and the funding they need to participate in the national inquiry?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
I thank the member for her ongoing commitment to this issue, and I think that there are many families like Dora across this country that will indeed be heard. In that, even in this pre-inquiry phase, in the design phase, we want to hear from the families and make sure that the design of the inquiry will meet their needs and that families will be involved throughout the inquiry to make sure that there will be justice for the victims and healing for the families. That is that we will have concrete actions to make sure that we have action after the inquiry is over.
Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
We applaud the announcement of today's inquiry, and in order to get it right, we must learn the lessons from past inquiries such as BC's Opal Commission. The scope there was so narrowly focused that the inquiry achieved little in the way of real change. Families and communities want to see systemic issues addressed: poverty, racism, violence against women. So I ask, will the minister reverse the previous government's cuts to Indigenous women's organizations' funding, provide adequate family to funding so that they can participate meaningfully in the process ahead?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
I thank the member for her question, and I think it's an excellent question in terms of the organizations that have provided that voice and that ability to bring people together as being essential in what disparate families and others have needed. So we are looking at the funding of all the national Aboriginal organizations and the organizations on the ground, but also together with the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Status of Women, we are going to try and put together the kinds of resources that will allow everybody to participate in this inquiry and the concrete steps to stop this national tragedy.
Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Foreign Affairs Minister has said that our airstrikes against ISIS will not be missed by our coalition allies and that the contribution to the bombing mission by our brave men and women in uniform has gone unnoticed. Instead, he should listen to Falah Mustafa Bakir, who heads the Kurdistan Department of Foreign Relations. He says the airstrikes have helped save lives and destroy the enemy. Mr. Speaker, the Kurdish people are on the front lines of the fight against ISIS. Instead of insulting our troops, why isn't the Liberal government listening to our allies?
And the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
First, Mr. Speaker, to congratulate my colleague for his first question as spokesperson for Foreign Affairs. But indeed, we have a lot of support among our allies. for a reorientation of our efforts to fight this awful terrorist group in a more efficient and effective way in order to be complementary and also to be sure that at the end of the day, the Iraqi people will have institutions in which they believe in order to help them to rebuild their country.
So the member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman will want to listen to the answers. The honourable member for Thornhill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canada has been among world leaders in acting to counter Iran's nuclear adventurism and human rights abuse. Iran continues to call for the destruction of Israel and is an open sponsor of terrorism. Yet the Prime Minister has said Canada will reopen our mission in Tehran, that he wants to re-engage with Iran. Mr. Speaker, why would the Liberal government cozy up to Iran when it continues to sponsor terrorism, calls for the destruction of Israel, and disregards basic human rights?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, it is the conviction of the government that when we disagree deeply with a regime, it's not a reason to cut all the links with this regime. It will not help the people of Iran. It will not help our allies, Israel, of other countries. Canada needs to be engaged and to speak frankly and to have results by dialogue, by frank dialogue and information, and to be sure that we work with our allies, because everybody speaks to Iran except Canada until we change the government.
Now the member for Milton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, here we are on day 2, and officials in finance have confirmed that, yes, indeed, the Liberal tax plan is not revenue neutral.
No, it isn't.
There's at least a $1.2 billion shortfall. Promise broken. Another promise is that the government wouldn't run deficits greater than $10 billion per year. Wow. Now, I think the finance minister has admitted that this promise, too, will be broken, but what Canadians need to know, Mr. Speaker, is by how much? How big will the deficit get?
Yeah. Wow. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, this is a great week for Canadians. We've come through on our plan to reduce taxes for the middle class. We made a commitment to do something that will help Canadians, and we're following through on it. We also know that we need to be prudent and transparent as we move forward. We've been transparent in describing this commitment and describing where we're at, and the budget will give more information on our exact situation.
Now the member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, I think the minister just said he's transparent in breaking promises, which is what we see so far. Of great concern as well, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that the finance minister's plan for growth so far simply isn't adding up. The minister announced yesterday that the centerpiece of his growth plan is essentially to provide families a tax break of $10 per week, and that's for an average family. That's not a plan for growth, Mr. Speaker. How can Canadians take this government seriously on economic growth?
Now the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are facing an era of low growth. We recognize this, and we've created a plan in order to invest in infrastructure. The very first step this week is to reduce taxes. We will be coming forth in the budget with investments in infrastructure that will make a real and sustained difference in our growth in this country to help Canadians and their children and grandchildren with a fairer and better growth rate in future.
Honourable member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, during the campaign, the Liberals promised to consult the public on TPP before taking any position, but the Prime Minister has reportedly promised world leaders he'll sign the Conservative negotiated deal. People in southwestern Ontario whose jobs are on the line want to know when they'll be consulted. They want a government who will stand up for their jobs. Does the minister believe that a better deal is possible, and will she try to negotiate a deal that protects Canadian jobs?
I have my niece, the Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate the member for Essex on her election and on her first question in this House. We absolutely understand that a deal the magnitude of the TPP requires extensive public consultation. I have been engaged in that energetically. I'd like to thank my colleague, the Minister of Innovation, who particularly when it comes to the auto sector has been working with me. We've spoken already with Labour. We're having a couple of Labour meetings this week. We've spoken with the car parts manufacturers. We're meeting with more car companies this week. So consultation is essential, and we are looking forward to hearing from Canadians.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister reportedly said when he was abroad that the government would go ahead with the TPP even though it will undermine supply management. And the Minister of International Trade recently questioned the compensation plan for the dairy sector. The dairy sector is significant for Quebec's economy. It generates 92,000 jobs and more than $8 billion. Well, does the government commit to working with Quebec dairy producers to ensure that they receive fair compensation?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I congratulate my honourable colleague on her appointment as Critic for Agriculture. I can assure my honourable colleague that this government is fully committed to supply management. We are engaging with the stakeholders continually. I and the Minister of Trade have continually met stakeholders, and we will protect supply management.
The honourable member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you well know, the Acadian village of Beaubassin was a vibrant centre of life in the 1600s and 1700s, but was burned to the ground in 1750, just at the beginning of the expulsion of the Acadians. Over the past 13 years, Parks Canada archaeologists have discovered over 50 foundations of houses, churches, and businesses in the ruins, and now have found over 7,000 artifacts from the 1600s and 1700s. Will the government commit the required resources to preserve, restore, and present this important piece of Acadian and Canadian history in time for Canada's 150th birthday?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I want to congratulate my colleague from Cumberland-Colchester for his excellent work in promoting and uncovering the historic site at Beaubassin. His support of the Acadian community is something that means a lot to the people all over Atlantic Canada, and I can confirm to him that my colleague, the Minister responsible for Parks Canada, is in a position to say that the investments will continue in the Beaubassin site. Parks Canada has worked successfully with the local community to develop 5 seasons of visits. There are other exhibits coming, traveling exhibits across the country, and we look forward to working with him to ensure that the potential of this important site is realized.
The honourable member for Beauce. Monsieur le Président. Mr. Speaker, in the election campaign, the 3 political parties committed to ensure that no taxes would be imposed. And Quebec or media recently called on the government to reopen this specific file. Can the government confirm once and for all that no tax on Netflix will be imposed on Canadian families?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to first and foremost thank the members for the question. I'd like to thank the residents for Mississauga Malton for electing me and allowing this opportunity to speak in the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. As the member so well knows, we're going to respect the competition and net neutrality, and I look forward to working with them on this issue. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, it's not even been barely a month, and already we see the Liberal government has turned its back on the resource sector. Reports are predicting 185,000 job losses in 2016. Most of those in Alberta. This is not even mentioned in the speech from the throne. In fact, the Minister of Employment has been AWOL for the past month. Why is Canada's revenue sector resource sector not a priority for this government, and why have we not heard from the Employment Minister?
The Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying how much of a privilege it is for me to represent the people of Winnipeg South Centre. Mr. Speaker, it's always very hurtful to review the consequence of job losses in any sector. The natural resource sector in Canada amounts for 20% of the gross national product of this country. We in this government know that we have to grow the economy sustainably while protecting the environment. That is what we intend to do. Our hearts go out to those who are suffering because of economic dislocation. It's our
For Barry Springwater, Oral
McDonald. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in January, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Liberal Party was asked what the most pressing issue was in southwestern Ontario. The response, Mr. Speaker, transitioning away from manufacturing-based employment. It couldn't be more clear. This Prime Minister has given up on manufacturing and the 744,000 families it supports. Mr. Speaker, why does the Liberal Party's real change mean real people losing real jobs?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has said and as the Minister of Finance has said, we're running on a growth agenda and we're focused very much on good quality jobs, Mr. Speaker. And when it comes to manufacturing, Mr. Speaker, we're going to making sure we're going to work with FedDev and other regional development agencies to put forward an innovation agenda that will help Canadians and create good quality jobs and make sure we grow the economy, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to thank the electors of Portneuf-Cartier for their confidence. Organizations across the country have put forth projects enabling them to offer projects for the 150th anniversary of the country in 2017. In Quebec alone, it's more than $31 million that will be used to make our regions more dynamic, and the projects need to be in before and completed before the end of December 2017. Can the Minister tell me whether or not there will be an answer on these projects before the end of 2015?
Structure and communities.
Mr. Speaker, as we know that 150th anniversary is going to be such an important part of our celebration, and we have many applications that come to my department and other departments, and some have been approved, some are in the process of being approved. We're going to look at those, and what those that are tied into our agenda to grow the economy and create prosperity, and how we tie that to the celebration. That's what we're going to look at, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Very good. The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, today's release of the Wait Time Alliance's 10th National Report Card shows that progress to reduce wait times for health care is inconsistent across the country. Palliative, mental health, home care, and long-term spaces are under-resourced, although demand is climbing. First Nations, refugees, and veterans are especially experiencing challenges accessing timely care. According to the Alliance, without a system-wide approach and more resources, things will not improve. Will this government reverse the Conservative cuts and act to address this critical need?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for this excellent question. As a family doctor, I'm clearly aware of the very serious concerns Canadians have around wait times. And that is exactly why, as a government, we are addressing the systemic transformation that needs to take place in our healthcare system. That's why I will be meeting with my provincial and territorial counterparts in January to negotiate a new health accord that will address not only wait times, but the many other gaps in our healthcare system that we will address. Thank you.
Very good.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe de Bagot.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, 2 reports confirm that too many Canadians are still waiting for health care in Canada. Despite urgent needs, the Conservatives imposed massive cuts on the provinces. The government committed to negotiate a new agreement, but we don't know if there will be money, the funding. Can the Minister confirm whether it will cancel the $36 billion cuts implemented by the Conservatives, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this is indeed an important question, and that's exactly why I will be meeting with my counterparts to be able to address these concerns. It would be premature for me to discuss the details of what that health accord will look like, but we know that it's not always money that is the answer. It is, in fact, transformation of the system that Canadians expect from us, and so we will begin discussions to improve access to home care, to reduce drug costs, and to improve mental health services.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Science and innovation drive economic development, which creates good jobs for hardworking Canadians. But there's no mention of science in the throne speech. Investment in science is critical to agriculture, forestry, mining, the energy sector, genomics, nanophysics. Mr. Speaker, how can this government claim to be serious about job creation when the word science doesn't even appear in the throne speech?
The Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate my colleague across the way, and we've already met. And Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say the war on science is now over. To ensure openness now and in the future.
I think members would be encouraged to keep their applause reasonably short to ensure ministers get a chance to answer the questions. The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals proposed changes to the tax system, they claimed the cuts would benefit the middle class. However, their proposal gives the maximum benefit to those who's making over $89,000 per year. Was it the government's intent to give the biggest tax break to people making between $100,000 and $200,000 annually? I'm sure.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. We introduced this week the very first step in our plan to help our economy grow. We introduced a step to reduce taxes. We will be following that up with the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit, which will help hundreds of thousands of Canadian children living in poverty to get out of poverty, and will help 9 out of 10 families to live better lives in Canada.
Honourable member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals announced with great fanfare that they would pay for their spending schemes on the backs of Canadian seniors by cutting $4,500 of tax-free savings accounts.
Shame.
Mr. Speaker, these accounts are an important tool for seniors to save their hard-earned money. 50% of tax-free savings accounts are held by seniors. Why is the Prime Minister paying for his promises on the back of Canadian seniors?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we ran on a commitment to create a fair tax system for Canadians. 6.7% of Canadians eligible for the TFSA use the maximum. We've made a commitment to creating fairness by reducing taxes for the middle class and introducing measures that are going to help other Canadians through increasing their benefit through the Canada Child Benefit, which will help a broad cross-section of Canadians. Not 6%.
I remember for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, the high rate of Indigenous women and girls who are missing and have been murdered in this country is an ongoing national tragedy, which all Canadians know must be addressed immediately. Can the Minister of Indigenous Affairs update this House on the steps this government is going to take to address this ongoing crisis?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank the member for the question and the opposition for their questions, and I thank the member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou for her elegant and eloquent member statement. Today, I was proud to stand with the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Status of Women as we delivered on our commitment for a national public inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Today, we announced Phase 1, which includes the 3 ministers that will meet with family members, national organizations, provinces and territories to actually help us and other members on dealing with the design of the inquiry. This is the first and urgent step, and
Honourable member for Banff, Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, some questions must be answered with a clear yes or a no. And yesterday, the Minister for Democratic Institutions skated around a question when asked whether the Liberals would be holding a referendum on a proposed new electoral system. So today, I'll ask a very direct question. After the consultations on electoral reform have taken place and a proposed new electoral reform system has been designed, will the government hold a referendum on that proposed new system? Yes or no?
Now the Minister for Democratic Institutions.
I thank the honourable member for his question and remind the 337 other candidates, other members of Parliament in this House, that what we committed to was an open and robust process of consultation, and I will not prejudice the outcome of that consultation process by committing to a referendum.
The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, during the election campaign, the Liberal Party committed, and I quote, to immediately reinstate the tax credit for contributions to Labour-sponsored fund in full, end of quote. Unfortunately, that doesn't appear anywhere in the Minister of Finance's plan. If nothing's done, on January 1st, there'll be a new cut, and it will hit these funds that create thousands of jobs in Quebec. I extend my hand to the government. Let's resolve this quickly in order to help the thousands of people to save for their retirement. Is the minister...
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, that is an important question. We made commitments, some commitments during our campaign, and we have promised to do so during the next budget consultations for 2016. We will hold consultations, and the decision will be reflected in budget 2016.
Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, infrastructure is an important part of our plan to grow the economy, create new jobs, and build a Canada for the 21st century. Infrastructure projects like the Burnside Expressway in Nova Scotia can create jobs in the short and medium term and increase trade and productivity in the long term. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Infrastructure. Can you tell us, please, about the development of our government's 10-year infrastructure plan?
Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that investing in infrastructure is vital to grow our economy, increase productivity, and create middle-class jobs. And I have been busy consulting with my provincial, territorial, and municipal partners. Our plan will double investment in public transit, social infrastructure, and green infrastructure over the next 10 years. These investments will help build strong, sustainable, and livable communities, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The minister just said, she actually just said that she will not prejudice the outcome of her process by asking the Canadian people what they think of her electoral proposals in a referendum. Heaven forfend that she should ask the Canadian people what they think in a referendum. Is she really asserting that the Canadian people are incapable of deciding in a referendum on how they should be governed and how our election should take place, the same way that people of British Columbia, of Prince Edward Island, of Ontario, of New Zealand, of the United Kingdom were asked? Are Canadians too immature to handle a referendum on this subject? Yes or no?
Now the Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, the people of this country deserve to be consulted on a matter as important as democratic institutions.
Order. We may have to extend the time for the minister's answer here. The Minister of Democratic Institutions has the floor.
We were clear in our commitment to the people of this country that this will be the last first-past-the-post federal election in Canadian history, and we will do that by engaging the people of this country coast to coast to coast in a robust process that is inclusive and involves every single member of this Parliament as well. Thank you.
La députée de Joliette.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague, the member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie, mentioned, Labour-sponsored fund tax credits are crucial for the economy in Quebec. And the minister can say that he's going to take action quickly to reinstate the tax credit. But why didn't he include the measure in the Ways and Means motion? That would have applied immediately instead of penalizing businesses, small savers, and the middle class in Quebec.
Honorable Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made numerous commitments during the course of our campaign. We wanted to introduce some commitments that were important to get out for tax planning right now for Canadians, which is why we introduced the tax cuts for the middle class and our changes in the TFSA. We will be looking at other commitments during the course of our budget consultations in order to give a clear and transparent understanding for Canadians of our budget in 2016.
Honorable Député de Mirabel.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by thanking the voters of Mirabel for placing their trust in me. The Minister of International Trade doesn't feel bound to buy the compensation program for agricultural producers under the TPP. But what about compensation stemming from the Canada-Europe Agreement? It's time to put in place a compensation fund for cheese and dairy producers in Quebec who will be penalized by the agreement. Will the Minister of International Trade commit to ensuring that compensation for dairy and cheese producers will meet their expectations, or will she simply outright to reject this measure, which is so important for the Quebec economy?
Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada fully supports supply management. The Government, as I indicated before, is fully engaged with the stakeholders. We understand fully the importance of compensation for the supply management sector. The Government of Canada supports compensation in the context of the Canada-EU trade agreement and the Trans-Pacific Partnership should it come into force. Thank you.
This will end question period for today. Order. Alors.
Order, please.
Order. Members are encouraged to carry on their conversations behind the curtains or in the lobbies. They don't want me to start naming members, do they? Order. Allard.
Order, please.
Order. Orders of the day, ordre du jour.
Address in reply to the speech from the throne.
Outside, folks. Members are asked to take it outside. The conversation should be behind the curtains or in the lobbies. Please, if you're not going to be sitting and listening, I invite you to enjoy the lobbies. We're ready for debate. There's some lovely chairs in the lobbies. Good place to sit around a table and have your discussions. On debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would first like to mention that I will be sharing my time with my colleague, my friend, the member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor. I'm very pleased to be able to speak in this debate today on the throne speech. It's kind of like coming full circle for me, because before my forced vacation in 2011, I had the opportunity and the privilege to be elected in 2004, 2006, and 2008. So I have listened to several throne speeches, and I've taken part in debates on several throne speeches. And I have to say, very objectively, very neutrally, that this is the best throne speech I've heard in 10 years. This throne speech comes after the longest election campaign in modern history, which gave a clear mandate to the government. It is a robust mandate, a mandate for change, for real change. And this change, Mr. Speaker, will be felt and seen both in its substance and in the approach. I'm talking about how we go about these changes when I talk about the approach, how we conduct ourselves. And the government has been clear on this. It wants to create a new relationship, a new type of relationship with Canadians, which will be based on dialogue, openness, and respect. We want to restore trust in government. Mr. Speaker, the tone will be different. This has been pointed out. It will be completely different. Instead of putting the emphasis on fear and distrust, the new government wants to emphasize what brings us together, what unites us as Canadians. And on the substance, we have been as clear during the election campaign, and Canadians gave us a strong mandate for that. We have a mandate to strengthen our middle class, to make it more prosperous, to develop a more fair and effective social safety net for families and seniors in particular. We have a mandate to make Canada greener, more prosperous, and more open to the world. There has been a lot of talk about the middle class and the need to give it help, to strengthen it, and this is what we will be doing. And the first action, starting right now, is to lower taxes for the middle class. I want to congratulate the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for their leadership in this area. You heard the Minister of Finance yesterday when he laid out very clearly what is going to be done. There will be a tax cut that will make the tax system more fair and will directly help the middle class. Concretely, this means a drop from 22% to 20.5% for those in the second tax bracket. So this is a concrete change. This will affect 9 million Canadians. They will benefit from this measure, and this is a serious commitment that will help many people. Another action being taken to strengthen the middle class will be to create the Canada Child Benefit. It will be a simplified, improved, tax-free benefit. This benefit will also directly help Canadian families that need it most. So these are two concrete measures already. So we're talking about a tax cut for the middle class and the child benefit. We have to go further, though, and we will do more. We are going to be bringing in the most significant investment strategy to improve infrastructure in Canada's history. We're talking about $125 billion, $60 billion of which will be new investment. And this is another very concrete action. We will be investing in transportation infrastructure, in social infrastructure, in green infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, providing funding for infrastructure means investing in our future. For example, if we have a better transit system, better water systems, affordable housing for seniors that are vulnerable, this is concrete action. And I want to talk about something that will be an honor and a privilege for me as parliamentary secretary. I will be able to support the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities in meeting this important challenge. We talked about the tax cut for the middle class, the increase in benefits for families with young children, investing in infrastructure, but we are doing more. At the international level, we are restoring Canada's image and credibility around the world. We will be listening and entering into dialogue. We will finally be back at the table of nations. We've got, for example, the energy area where we are taking back our leadership position, which was abandoned by the Conservatives. Our Minister of Environment has already done good work, and she is to be congratulated on the fact that she's been chosen as one of the 14 facilitators to make sure that the Paris conference is a successful one. And I am talking about the environment, so I also want to mention that Canada will once again show leadership on the environment, both in Canada and abroad. We will be working with the provinces and territories to fight climate change. The situation is critical, Mr. Speaker, and we need to take action now. So we will be working on the climate change file. We will be investing in green employment. And this isn't just good for the environment, it is also good for our economy. We will strengthen the environmental assessment processes so that they are real, serious processes, and we will work to protect our lakes, our rivers, our oceans. So clearly, we can see from the outset that this government has a concrete, ambitious plan to protect the environment. Mr. Speaker, this program, these plans have been introduced by the Prime Minister and have been accepted by Canadians. I could stop there, but there is so much else to talk about. We're going to be strengthening programs for seniors, in particular the Guaranteed Income Supplement, which will help those seniors who need it most. We will be investing to help young people, especially helping them get into the labor market. And we will be restoring our relations with our First Nations, especially by starting to have dialogue with them on the basis of recognition and respect and rights. And as promised, we will be setting up a national inquiry, which is so important, on missing and murdered Aboriginal women. Those who have been affected by this will be heard. We also will be there for our veterans who have done so much for us. Veterans and their families deserve our recognition and our respect. They have done so much. They deserve our help. We will be investing in culture, which is important, because our culture is our identity. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the member for Honoré Mercier back here to the House, congratulate him on the election, and promise him that I will play a constructive role in opposition. I have a question for the member, Mr. Speaker. He talked about how important it was to invest in infrastructure, and as an engineer, of course, I agree with him, but you have to invest in infrastructure without creating debt for the future. Why are they not taking that approach, and why are they giving tax cuts to people who earn $200,000 a year when people who earn less get little or nothing? I have worked on committees with him, and he knows that our government helped reduce our climate change results, that is, reduce greenhouse gases. Why does he not aim to do that? The Honourable Member. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague, the member for Lévis-Bellechasse, for his question, which was in fact 5 or 6 questions. But if I respond first to the first, I know that the Conservatives did have an infrastructure program, but we are going to strengthen it. We're going to double infrastructure investments. It is an investment, not an expense, because we're talking about the roads that our children will be using tomorrow. This creates stable jobs, and it builds our future. With respect to climate change targets, the Liberal government will be much more ambitious than the Conservative government was, because we take a responsible, serious approach to the environment. I hope he is watching what is happening in Paris, because we will be doing a lot more in the upcoming months and weeks and months. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my honourable colleague, the member for Honoré Mercier, for his speech. He talked a lot about the environment, which is an issue that is of great interest to me. He talked about climate change. I like his tone, which is a very good one, because he makes the connection between the economy and the environment. The Liberals, though, went to Paris with the same targets as the Conservatives had. We know that they were not reasonable targets, so I would like to know what the Liberals' targets will be. He also talked about environmental assessments. I sat on the Environment Committee when the process was revised, and with the Conservatives, the approach made no sense. However, we've got Energy East. That pipeline project is still on the table, can he tell me whether there is a process underway to review those types of projects?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question.